In the third and final video of this series, I will explain one of the most critical changes you can make in the journey of reducing your carbon footprint: altering your diet. Our diet has an immediate influence on the carbon-intensive agriculture industry and vice versa. What we eat has an expansive impact on the planet, so forget recycling and carpooling. Start with what's on your plate. The 10 biggest food companies in the world have greater carbon emissions than the Nordic companies combined. So a great place to start is by refusing to buy the mass-produced packaged food of these brands. Unchecked water usage, single-use packaging, and abysmal waste management characterize these billion-dollar companies. For instance, Nestle, the world's biggest food company, is a rampant consumer of resources and is the highest producer of bottled water in the world. It drains the aquifers it controls as much as possible without any regards to sustainable usage or environmental concerns. Coca-Cola is no better, responsible for selling more than 100 billion single-use plastic bottles across the globe every year and barely reaching one-third of their recycling goal in 2015. They operate 58 water-intensive bottling plants in India itself, and can potentially exacerbate the already highly deadly water crisis our country faces. By continuing on this road, these companies are putting short-term benefits before the long-term impact. Most of the sustainability claims made by these companies are just situations of greenwashing. That's why, as consumers, we have to judiciously use the products made by them. The next step is to know the foods that are best and worst for the environment. The yes and no foods. Foods that are always a good option are lentils, which have a carbon footprint 43 times less than beef, beans, nuts and seeds like flax, chia and walnuts, sprouts, diversified cereals like quinoa and other millets, and all local produce. No foods include red meat, beef, lamb, eggs, processed sweets like chocolate, mainstream cereals like rice, and palm oil. Let's have a closer look into the last one of these, the deadly palm oil. Palm oil is a vegetable oil that is present in 50% of all consumer goods, from candy to soap. The production of palm oil is responsible for aggressive deforestation, which contributes more than 558 million metric tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Thousands of square miles of rainforest are razed every year in the name of cheap snacks. Now, I don't intend to urge people to stop eating these foods completely, but rather to be more conscious about what you're eating and what went into the production of it. As consumers, all we see is shiny packaging and mouth-watering names, but the real cost is hidden from us. So what is the solution to more conscious eating? Number 1. Stop buying packaged food. As much as you can, avoid packaged snacks and foods. They're bad for your health, probably packaged in single-use plastic, and more often than not, products of the most polluting companies in the world, like the ones mentioned before. Number 2. Have a diversified diet. Diversified diets don't only improve human health but benefit the environment through diversified production systems that encourage wildlife and more sustainable use of resources. You could do this by opting for a range of different millets such as quinoa instead of mainstream cereals like rice, which are resource hogs, or switch to meals that consist mostly of vegetables and legumes rather than wheat products. Number 3. Substitute the bad with the good. There are so many better options for the no foods on the list. Simply substitute them with foods that are good for the environment, and trust me, it's not as hard as it may sound. For instance, avoid store-bought snacks that probably contain palm oil by choosing homemade alternatives. And when it comes to meat, I know that a lot of dishes may seem incomplete without it. But if we venture outside our usual meal habits, we can discover that there is so much out there. From cauliflower to tofu, meat substitutes surround us. All we need to do is look. Number 4. Eat locally. Eating local produce has numerous benefits. Food is usually package-free. It is more nutritious. Most importantly, the carbon footprint is reduced as the food miles reduce. Some good ideas for eating locally in India or to make fruits such as mangoes, watermelons, coconuts, and other tropical fruit a regular feature in your diet in place of store-bought snacks, and buying rice, grains, and milk from local farms rather than from stores. Number 5. Say no to fast food. Going to fast food places and cafes like Starbucks has become a trend, even a status symbol in our age. While it can be agreed that they do have some delicious dishes, these billion-dollar food brands are largely unsustainable in their practice, from production to the plastic cups that they serve your drink in. Instead, make what you can at home and let visits to these places be few and far between. Now, on to what scientists of the IPCC claim is one of the best things one can do for the environment: cutting off meat. This claim is entirely valid, as each kilogram of lamb meat contributes to 22.9 kilograms of carbon emissions, and 225 grams of beef requires 25,000 liters of water to produce. In fact, 5 of the largest meat and dairy companies combined emit more than the world's oil giants like ExxonMobil, Shell, and BP. Completely shifting to veganism or vegetarianism may seem daunting, so let me try to make it easier for you. As you cut off meat, be sure to include plenty of fruit and vegetables in your diet. Eat plenty of plant-based fats such as nuts, seeds, and avocados. Make sure you are getting enough protein, calcium, and iron, especially if you are an athlete. Remember, don't replace all meat with dairy. Instead, choose plant-based alternatives like beans and legumes. Don't worry, you don't need to go all out at once either. This will make you likely to be overwhelmed and stop in between. You can cut off meat periodically. For example, have one vegetarian week every month and then increase it to 15 days, and so on. Alternatively, you could have meat-free weekdays and non-vegetarian weekends. This may initially seem like too big of a sacrifice, but once you start, I promise it gets easier. And bear in mind that you are doing this for yourself, your future, and the future of our planet. Moving on to the last and final section of these videos. In today's world, fashion has undeniable significance as a manifestation of one's identity and beliefs. But the importance we have attributed to our dressing has made the lucrative fashion industry the second largest polluter and one of the biggest consumer of resources in the world. So how does one dress without irreversibly damaging and contaminating our environment? One of the wisest changes you can make is by being mindful of the fabric that makes your clothes. The first thing you must avoid are synthetic fibers, which aren't naturally derived but are rather products of petroleum. These fibers don't biodegrade as they are essentially plastic, so they end up contaminating our oceans and killing our wildlife. Common synthetic fibers include polyester, nylon, and acrylics. Polyester is a regular feature in fast fashion as it is inexpensive and easy to produce. Recycled polyester sourced from plastic bottles is somewhat better than regular one, but in the end has the same environmental repercussions. Nylon, often found in cotton blends, emits nitrous oxide, a highly toxic greenhouse gas during manufacture. Rayon is another synthetic fiber generated by treating wood pulp with hazardous chemicals. Rayon production sees the razing of hundreds of acres of ancient forests for pulpwood plantation. In place of these low-grade fabrics, opt for fabrics that have natural sources like linen, organic cotton, hemp, jute, bamboo, and tencel. These fabrics are biodegradable, breathable, free of pesticides and chemicals, and are better for your skin as well as the environment. So the next time you have your eye on something at the store, simply check the tag and think about these 5 things to determine its sustainability. Number 1, its source. Is it natural or synthetic? Number 2, the resources it requires like water, chemicals, land, and fossil fuels. Number 3, the process of turning fiber into fabric. Where does this take place, and is it energy intensive? How long does this process take, and what kind of labor is used? Number 4, the longevity of the fabric. Will it last enough for you to make proper use of its environmental cost? And lastly, its end life. Can this fabric be reused, recycled, composted, donated, or does it have to be thrown away? While this reasoning process is very useful, it can bring most to a crossroads for one particular fabric that makes up most of the clothes we wear: cotton. On the positive side, cotton is a natural plant-based fiber, but it is a resource hog. Responsible for 3% of global water use, cotton is one of the most water-intensive crops in the world. Production of cotton turned the Aral Sea into a desert and significantly exacerbates the already extreme water crisis India faces. With that being said, almost 90% of all clothes contain cotton in them, so it undeniably is hard to avoid. If you are faced with an option between a synthetic fiber and cotton, it is the obvious choice. But the best thing you can do, not just with cotton but for your entire wardrobe, is to reduce how much you buy. Firstly, be aware of what you have and what you really need. A great step to take is by imitating the model of a capsule wardrobe, which in a sense is a wardrobe that has mostly just the essential, versatile, and durable clothing. Weed out the clothes you don't wear anymore and organize a clothing trade with your friends or donate them to a local charity or thrift store. The key is to extend the life of the garments you already own such that you avoid excessively buying new ones. This isn't the solution to the climate crisis, but can significantly reduce how much you consume as you begin to consider the true environmental costs behind it. You could also breathe new life into old clothes by upcycling them, turning jeans into shorts, old fabrics into scarves. Just let your creativity go wild. Now, when you are buying something new, shop for sustainable brands or local companies instead of giving your money to multinational, unsustainable retailers. Our steps, though seemingly insignificant, can cumulatively attenuate the ecological impact of the fashion industry and counter the norm of fast fashion. Now, that brings us to the end of this series of videos. Now that you know how to, it is time to change the way you live. When you change your actions, and I say this from personal experience, people start talking. Your actions make people aware of the exigency of the climate crisis. As individuals, our ability to transform our lives and influence others is the most useful tool we have. Use it. Thank you so much for watching these videos. I genuinely hope you learned something new. If you are interested, my sources are linked in the video description below, as are my other videos.